It's Tim Zencka.
Rick, how are you?
I'm doing good, buddy. How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
How come Keith isn't here? What happened?
I don't know. We just got in here and he wasn't here, so we might as well go on.
You know, here's the thing. He's been struggling with his vegetarianism so much that I think the guy's just gotten weak and decided to go back to meat and was too embarrassed to show us.
Either that or he's letting us come on the show in his place.
Well,
I'll go with the second one.
All right, cool. That's probably something he'd like better anyway. Hey, so today I want to talk to you about a couple of things. One is you're an amazingly motivated guy on all levels, both in terms of...
Thank you, I appreciate that.
You're welcome. How you handle your kids as a dad, as a loving father, how you are with you're impeccable with your career, and you're amazing as a friend. And those are three major areas of life that a lot of people fall down on. And I'm wondering, how do you motivate yourself to do things maybe when you don't feel like you want to do them?
That's a good question. I appreciate the compliments, certainly, and it's not always easy to do that, for sure. I think the main thing that helps me a lot is really knowing what my why is, or why I'm doing things, and knowing what is important. If I'm not quite sure why I'm doing things, then I won't end up doing it.
Let me stop you right there. So like, let's say we come into a situation where, okay, somebody that you haven't seen maybe in 5 or 6 years calls you, and at one time you guys were really close, but you've got some things planned with your kids. You know, there's a conflict about whether you want him or her to come into your life. So what's the why for you then? How do you do the why analysis in a situation like that?
In terms of getting together with someone like that, you mean?
Yeah.
You know, that is something I've really struggled with, because I've always been more of a people pleaser. Well, I would do a lot of things for other people, which is good, but a lot of times it would take away from things that I really wanted to do. So that's something I'm currently working on, and I've been doing a good job as of late with saying no. And it's been hard, but I have to really, if it doesn't really fit into my main goals and objectives, then I have to sometimes say no. And if I'm able to do it, I will, certainly, but a lot of times you have to, you know, step back and say, this isn't really gonna achieve my ultimate goals.
Wow, that's a great way to go. So how do you do the why analysis generally if there's no conflict? What do you do when you just don't feel like doing something that you need to do?
Well, I don't really consider myself to be a procrastinator, so I don't have much trouble with, if I have to do it, I will typically tackle the most difficult tasks first and just end up doing it. If I really don't feel like doing it, I just sit back and go, okay, what is the ultimate result if I don't do this? And then sometimes that results in a lot of pain, and I'll go, okay, by not doing this, then I'm being in a lot more pain than if I just go ahead and do it.
Are you like a natural overworker? I mean, if you didn't have a career, would you have to invent something to keep yourself busy?
No, not at all. No, not at all. No, I wouldn't say that at all. I mean, I like, if I'm interested in something, I'll put in a lot of effort into it. But otherwise, I don't think I can always find things that I'm excited about to keep busy. What about you? I mean, how do you keep yourself? You know, people coming at you from all different directions, and how do you stay focused on?
Well, usually I try to embarrass them so they're not my friend any longer, and then they stay away, and the problem is solved. So that's why I live alone, and I eat every meal alone, and you know, it's a really rough deal for me. I think, seriously though, I think part of what happens as you age is I think you tend to have more interests in a certain direction and you want to fulfill those. And with me being more or less semi-retired, there's a lot of time that I have that I didn't have before to do things that I like to do. And that's easy. I mean, you don't have to really motivate yourself to do something you like, right?
Yeah.
Although sometimes, you know, sometimes making choices is difficult. I think the real tough thing about motivating is the idea of what the payoff is, and also, as you said before, realizing that there's a downside if you don't do it. What's the cost to me if I don't do something? What's the upside if I do it? And what it is that I really want for the rest of my life. So for me, for example, this last bit of my life, I want to have an extraordinary life with what remaining time I have. And so it has to fit that criteria. Is this something that really contributes to my extraordinary life? So fitness, eating properly, having great friends, and not having people that are in my life who are negative or, you know, creating problems for me. Those are all big for me. And I think of that every day. You know, every day I have that motivation. I want to have an extraordinary life, and I want to do things that I can do. I'm so grateful that I can still do them.
You did mention travel. Is that not important to you?
Well, that's automatic. You do all those things on the road.
That's true.
Well, you're a traveler too, though, right?
Well, I try to for both work and then kids and personal vacations. I don't travel as extensively as you. I would love to. That's something I strive for, later in life.
What do you think about motivating the kids, though? That you are an example. I mean, unbelievable example for your kids.
Yeah.
Is there something you do, like you coach them or teach them how to be motivated?
I wish I could say I do, because every kid is different, and I've known that with both my children. They both get motivated by different things, and so trying different tactics may or may not work. For me, the best thing that works is just leading by example. So by me doing things or seeing the way that I am in certain areas, that carries over. Not all the time, but a lot of times they'll see that.
One thing I noticed with other parents that you don't never do this, and I love you for that, and that is that when the kids start asking why, they can ask why for like 20 times.
Sure.
And you're very patient, and every why leads to an explanation, leads to an explanation, leads to an explanation.
Yeah.
How did you get that way?
Why do you ask that?
Because I think it's neurotic. No, it's really cool. I love it. I wanted to do that myself.
Well, it's funny. We actually have an exercise that we do at work with part of our coaching about asking questions. And we teach our coaches about how to ask good, powerful, open-ended questions. And
Cool.
so it's kind of a skill. Listening and asking questions is a skill you can learn. You're not always good at it. And we do an exercise where you have to ask open-ended questions for 3 straight minutes. And it doesn't sound that difficult, but it might as well be 2.5 hours, because it's very difficult to keep that going. And so I work on that with my kids, where they're asking questions, and if they're asking good questions, I'm happy to answer, and I'll ask questions back to them, and they're just curious. That's really the kids are very.
Do they ask questions of you like that? So, I mean, they have asked the why stuff, but do they ever ask you questions that are open-ended like that, where the conversation continues?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. You get that all the time. You get questions that you wouldn't expect, and things that strike a good conversation, and pretty in-depth questions. Yeah.
One of the amazing things about Tim that both Keith and I love having him as a friend for is he's an amazing listener, always an amazing listener. And you can see just in the few minutes that we've been back and forth on this, he's very, very thoughtful, and you're just amazing about listening to people and giving your best advice or your best opinion or whatever it is. How did you develop that skill?
That's a very nice compliment. I appreciate that. It became something that I wanted to do. I made a choice, because I was not always a good listener, and I'll tell you, there's a lot of people that debate that I'm a good listener. So I appreciate that you think that. But it's one of the things where I think it's important, and I want to be a good listener. And I'm not always a good listener, but I try. And so I think just being aware of that and making the effort and just trying to find different ways. And as I've gotten older, I've become less interested in really talking about myself. I really want to hear about other people, and I don't really want to talk about myself. So I like to hear what other people's trials and tribulations are, and by listening, there's one way you can really learn about listening to it.
Did you have to do something to overcome an objection to motivating yourself that way? Like, so, for example, the point of the show is to talk about things that we do to try to motivate ourselves when we don't want to be motivated. Were you at a point in your life at some point where you just didn't want to listen to other people, and then you kind of talk yourself into it, or did that happen naturally?
I think it's kind of happened naturally over time. I really actually found that I was better connected with others when I asked more questions and learned about them, and so it just kind of developed naturally, I think, over time. Yeah. And I certainly learned a lot from you. You're an amazing listener as well. Is that something? Did you always have that? Being practicing law is something you have to practice.
Well, no, I was pretty much of a loudmouth egotist till like last week, and then I've been imitating Keith, and Keith has been really helpful in showing me that I've just been a complete fool. No, I'm teasing him. But I think, okay, let me give you a couple of examples of what I think are hard things to do for motivating. Suppose we had a situation in the morning, like when we were working on a ToBeRe, where you have to get up at 4 in the morning. What made me want to do it was the idea that I was going to be connected with a lot of people, that I was acting in a way that was healthy and honoring my body, and I had to make those things more important to me than staying in bed and having an extra cup of coffee or whatever I was going to do that morning. How about you? Yeah,
I'll use the same example because it's an easy one in terms of, as you know, with the RT portion of our fitness, a lot of times we wake up at 3:15 in the morning. And I don't know anything that's better than going back to bed at 3:15 in the morning. There's nothing that's better than that. And
exactly.
So you have to have reasons why you would wake up and get up when it's dark out, cold out, certainly don't feel like it. And you have to think of those positive things every single time. Why am I doing this? Otherwise, you're gonna get. And a lot of times it's who am I going to go see that day, the friends I'm going to connect with, and then what are my ultimate fitness goals, and if I don't do this, I'm going to feel worse. And I also think a lot of times about, the times I do go and wake myself up and go, I never feel bad after that. I never am like, oh, I wish I would have stayed in bed.
Right.
And I don't think there's not one time I've ever been that way. Like, oh, I should have slept in that day. And I just remember that. And I go, you know what?
Right.
And every once in a while you just do not feel like doing it, but you do, and then you just remind yourself of how good it feels afterwards. And that's what keeps me motivating. And then it's a cumulative effect. So like you push a rock, it's hard to get the rock going. Once the rock is moving, you can't stop it, so you keep on going. Do you find that as well, that you're able to?
Totally, that's totally. The idea that it's kind of you overcome inertia, you overcome your standstill, and then you develop this momentum that allows you to go forward, and sort of like automatic pilot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the secret of developing good habits. Another thing, like with our careers, you're sort of in the same mode as me. Neither of us procrastinate. Deadline-driven stuff, where we have to speak a lot, and I think another example would be, I don't want to ever embarrass myself. I don't want to be in front of a lot of people, particularly my client or a judge or an adversary that's going to say, yeah, this guy didn't prepare.
Yeah.
So the pain of thinking that I would blow it is more powerful than the idea of having to spend a couple extra hours in preparing.
I agree. When it comes to preparing things like that, when I teach classes for work, it's not always fun to have to prepare behind the scenes, but the things that I think about are the people that are driving long distance to come to a class, the people that are, waking up early in the morning and have to come in. I try to make sure that they're getting the best experience possible. And then a theme that I always go with is I always prepare for the class like the president of the company is going to walk in during the class.
Wow, that's
and so,
great.
and that's kind of, it's always in the back of my mind, like you prepare for this
Nice.
class like he's going to walk in. And I had a situation one time, it hadn't happened for 8-9 years, and there's one class where I'm like, I just don't really feel like preparing my most. And I had kept that in my mind, and you wouldn't believe that he actually walked into the class. And so as I'm going, I'm like, oh, this is awesome, because I really felt like cashing it in before the class. I'm like, I'm just going to go give it. No, I'm going to prepare like I always do. And sure enough, he came in for 15 minutes, sat in, and it worked out. So.
That's another example. It's a beautiful example of that idea of momentum, the idea that you just overcome it naturally because it's a habit.
Yeah.
Good prep is a habit, and you just get into it, and off you go.
It is, and what motivates, I don't like starting over. So therefore, if you're constantly starting something, then you're always kind of pushing that rock for the first time. So I just know once you get it going, it's easy to keep the momentum going. It's just hard to get it going. So if you get in that habit of always just starting, don't even think about it, just do it.
Yeah, overcoming that standstill. Somebody said that the easiest thing to do when you're looking at a big project is just to take that first step, and then to continue taking little baby steps with the proviso that you never step back. You never step back. You can't let yourself step back.
No, absolutely. And a lot of times, and I do this with my kids as well, you have to chunk things and break things down into small increments, because if you start talking about, for example, passing the bar exam, very overwhelming, or this big giant task you have to do,
That's true.
You've got to break it down to what I have to do today, this week, this month. Break it down to how many pages do I have to read. It's 5 pages today. Maybe it's 1,000 pages, but if you break it down by minutes, hours, days, it's probably not that bad.
I think if we were to boil it all down to one thing, the idea of doing things that you don't want to do, to develop the motivation for it, the key is 2 things. I think number 1 is getting leverage on yourself, making sure that where you want to go is really what you want to do, and that the pain of where you are is worse than the amount of effort that it takes to get where you want to go. That's number 1. And then number 2 is developing those habits and just putting blinders on, right? So if it's preparation, if it's getting up at 3, if it's doing a lot of question answering for kids, you do it because that's where you want to be, right?
Yeah, I agree. As long as you know where you want to go and you have that North Star to aim at, I think you have a much better chance of getting there and making yourself do something you don't necessarily want to do.
Yeah, Tim Zencka, one of my North Stars. Hey man, thanks.
Likewise, thanks
Rick.
I love you.
I love you.
Love you, brother.